Can you truly achieve your full human potential in a world designed for distraction? Welcome to Bookish Mind, Season 10, Episode 04, where we delve into Rule #1 of Cal Newport's groundbreaking book, Deep Work. You, our insightful listener, shared some fantastic excerpts from the book, specifically from Part 2, focusing on Rule #1, Work Deeply. And our core challenge, as Newport puts it so well, is that we are disciples of depth in a shallow world. I mean, just think about it. Open offices, constant email pings, a culture that often values quick replies over really deep thinking. So our mission in this deep dive is to figure out strategies, ways to simulate an ideal deep work environment, even when reality feels pretty distracting.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because most people, they hear deep work is valuable and they just think, okay, I'll just start doing more of it.
Right, just buckle down.
Exactly. But that begs the question, why do we need these really involved interventions Newport talks about, like an entire building design just for focus? It shows how strong that pull towards shallow stuff really is. There was this 2012 study, Hoffman and Baumeister. They tracked over 200 adults, thousands of samples of their desires throughout the day. And guess what kept popping up?
Let me guess. Email. Social media.
Spot on. Checking emails, social networks, web surfing, music, TV. Those were among the most common desires. And here's the thing. People only managed to resist them about half the time.
Wow, only half.
Yeah. It really tells you something, doesn't it? That just intending to focus, well, it's often not enough. Our willpower, it's limited, like a muscle, It gets tired. Good intentions just aren't sufficient against that constant temptation.
That's a really powerful point about willpower being finite. So if we can't just wish ourselves into deep work, what's the actual solution here?
The solution is moving beyond just good intentions. It's about building routines and rituals into your work life. Things that specifically cut down on the amount of willpower you need to, first, get into that focus state, and second, to stay there.
Okay.
I mean, if you try to jump straight from mindlessly scrolling Instagram into, writing a complex report, you're just going to burn through your willpower reserves immediately.
That's right.
But if you have smart routines in place, you conserve that energy, and that makes deep work something you can actually do consistently, not just, once in a blue moon.
So it's less about brute force and more about building habits. Okay, I like the sound of that. So this deep dive, we're going to unpack these strategies, right? Starting with a pretty fundamental choice. How you actually approach deep work in the first place. Right, so when it comes to actually integrating deep work, Newport says it's not really a one-size-fits-all deal. You need to pick a philosophy that works for you, not just try things randomly. He gives examples like Donald Knuth, the computer science giant, versus Brian Chappell, who was a doctoral candidate with a young family.
Exactly. Both totally valued deep work, but their lives, their circumstances were completely different, so their approaches had to be different too.
And I guess if you pick the wrong approach for your situation.
Yeah, if there's a mismatch between the philosophy you try to adopt and your actual life circumstances, your deep work habits can just fall apart before they even get going. The whole point is finding what clicks for you, what gives you a structure that supports that limited willpower instead of fighting against it all the time.
Okay, so let's walk through the options. The first one sounds intense, the monastic philosophy.
Oh, it is. Donald Knuth is the classic example. Famously, he hasn't used email since 1990.
1990, seriously?
Yep. He said, 15 years of email is plenty for one lifetime. His view is that his job is to be on the bottom of things, which means he needs long hours of studying and uninterruptible concentration.
So how do people even reach him?
Snail mail.
Yeah?
Seriously. To a postal address, and his assistant filters it. The big idea here is that for a very small group of people whose work is incredibly focused, radically cutting out shallow stuff isn't just nice to have, it's absolutely essential for doing work that gets remembered.
Wow.
Yeah, this monastic way, it's all about maximizing deep work by just eliminating or drastically minimizing all those shallow tasks. It really only fits people with super well-defined, highly valued goals, like Knuth wanting to understand and write about everything in computer science. Neil Stephenson, the sci-fi writer, is another one. He actively avoids email, speaking gigs.
Because it fragments his focus.
Exactly. He says his productivity is nonlinear, and that kind of fragmentation just destroys his ability to write novels. It essentially creates this intellectual elite, totally cut off from distractions, just thinking deep thoughts.
It's a level of simplicity that, clearly isn't practical for most of us. But for those few, where the contribution is so specific and individual, it could make all the difference between an average career and, like you said, one that people remember. Okay, so moving from the extreme, what's next? The bimodal philosophy. That sounds like it involves two modes.
It does. Think Carl Jung. He had his famous stone house, Bullenin Tower, where he'd retreat for intense, focused writing, like lock himself away, minimalist room, just write, meditate, walk, think.
Okay, sounds pretty monastic so far.
But here's the twist. The rest of his time, he was fully engaged in a busy Zurich life. Clinical practice, lectures, coffeehouse chats. He definitely wasn't monastic all the time.
I see. So bimodal means splitting your time?
Precisely. You divide your time into really clearly defined stretches of deep work where you do act like a monk, and then you leave the rest of your time open for everything else. The minimum chunk of deep time here is usually at least a full day.
Why whole day?
Because the goal is to hit that maximum cognitive intensity to really allow for real breakthroughs. You need that sustained immersion. The key idea for this one is that for some people, switching between intense deep work periods and being accessible for shallow work is actually the best way to get profound stuff done while still handling complex professional demands.
Is there a modern example?
Yeah, Adam Grant, the Wharton professor, he apparently stacks his teaching into one semester so he can dedicate the other semester primarily to research and writing his depth work.
And within that deep semester?
He takes these short, like 2 to 4 day monastic retreats, puts on the out-of-office autoresponder and everything. But outside those specific deep periods, he's known for being really open and accessible, which fits with his whole give and take philosophy.
But isn't there a fear, like if you just disappear for a whole day or more, won't people, clients, colleagues get annoyed?
That's a really common worry, yeah. But Newport mentions a study by Leslie Perlow on management consultants. They were terrified their clients would freak out if they disconnected for a full day each week.
And did they?
Nope. Turns out the clients didn't care. As long as those deep work periods are clearly defined and, communicated beforehand, people generally respect your need to be inaccessible for a bit. It's probably more feasible for more jobs than people think.
Okay, that's encouraging. Let's move on to the third one, the rhythmic philosophy. You mentioned Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, the classic don't break the chain method. He got a big calendar, and every single day he wrote jokes. He put a big red X over that day. After a few days, you have a chain.
And the goal is just don't break it.
Just don't break the chain. That's it. This philosophy turns deep work into a simple, regular habit. It takes away the decision of if you're going to do deep work today or when. That decision itself drains willpower, right?
Removes the friction.
Exactly. Brian Chappell, the doctoral student we mentioned earlier, he used this. Full-time job, new baby. Life was crazy. So he started waking up at 4:45 a.m. every weekday.
Wow. Dedication.
Yeah. And he worked solely on his dissertation until 7:30 a.m. That simple rhythmic routine let him produce like 4 to 5 pages of solid academic writing per day, which is incredible output under those circumstances.
So the core idea here is consistency over intensity.
Pretty much. The insight is consistency, that steady rhythm, is often the most reliable way to rack up significant deep work hours, especially when your life is demanding and unpredictable.
That makes sense. It's a trade-off maybe. Like the rhythmic approach might not hit those absolute peaks of intense concentration that someone using the bimodal method aims for in their multi-day retreats.
True. But by making deep work a consistent, almost automatic part of your schedule, you often end up with a larger total number of deep hours per year. This is super common and probably the most realistic for people in standard office jobs where, vanishing for days just isn't going to fly.
Okay, last one. The journalistic philosophy.
Yeah.
This sounds like it's for people who need to switch gears quickly.
Exactly. Think Walter Isaacson. He wrote that massive 864-page book, The Wise Men, essentially on the side, while he was climbing the ranks incredibly fast at Time magazine.
How did he manage that?
His uncle told a story about sharing a beach house with him. Isaacson would just, disappear upstairs to his bedroom for maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. They'd hear the typewriter going.
Clack, clack, clack.
Yeah. And then he'd come back down, totally relaxed, like nothing happened, just fitting it in whenever he could grab a slice of time.
Sounds difficult.
Oh, it is. This approach demands the ability to switch from shallow mode to deep mode really quickly. Newport warns it's absolutely not for novices. If you haven't trained that mental muscle, trying to switch like that constantly can just shred your willpower.
So you need practice and probably confidence.
Definitely confidence. You need to be sure that what you're switching to is important and that you can make progress in short bursts. Isaacson, already being successful professionally, likely had that confidence. The core insight is, if your schedule is chaotic, developing the mental skill to drop into deep work instantly is key, but it's a skill you have to build, not something you just have.
Yeah, I could see the appeal of the journalistic approach. I mean, personally, I often feel like I'm trying to squeeze in focused work during, unexpected quiet moments, kids napping, a meeting gets canceled
Yeah.
on a quiet corner somewhere. But yeah, that constant switching. How do you stop it from just frying your brain?
That is the challenge and why it takes practice. It really relies on having that confidence in the value of what you're doing, believing that even 20 minutes is worthwhile. But if you can cultivate that skill, it's actually a very robust philosophy for people with really demanding, unpredictable schedules. It's about training your brain to snap into focus almost on command.
Okay, so we've got these four philosophies, sort of the overarching strategy for how deep work fits into your life. But now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the universal tactics, the habits that actually support deep work, no matter which philosophy you lean towards. First one, ritualize.
Right. Newport points out that great creative minds, they're rarely just winging it. Think Robert Caro, the biographer apparently. His office is governed by strict rules for everything. Or Charles Darwin, his workday was incredibly structured. 7 a.m. walk, 8 to 9:30 study, letters, 10:30 to noon study, then another specific walk.
It sounds almost obsessive.
Maybe a little. But Mason Curry, who studied these habits, said, waiting for inspiration to strike is a terrible, terrible plan. And David Brooks put it brilliantly. Great creative minds think like artists, but work like accountants.
Okay, so the ritual isn't just a quirky habit.
Not at all. The crucial insight is that rituals are like precision tools. They're designed to minimize the friction, the mental effort of starting and sustaining deep work. They basically let you bypass those constant willpower battles.
So, if we're thinking about creating our own ritual, what should we consider?
Newport breaks it down right.
Yeah, he suggests asking yourself three key questions. First, where and for how long will you work?
Be specific, right? Not just my desk.
Exactly. Maybe it is your normal office, but with the door shut, a sign-up. Or maybe it's a specific library carrel, a conference room you book, a coffee shop without Wi-Fi. And crucially, set a specific time frame. Don't just say, I'll work deeply this afternoon. Say, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Makes it concrete.
Okay, makes sense. What's the second question?
How will you work once you start? You need rules for the session itself.
Like no internet.
Could be. Or maybe a metric, like tracking words written every 20 minutes. The
Sure.
point is to have a predefined structure so you're not wasting precious mental energy during the session, deciding what you should be doing or if you're allowed to check email. That debate drains willpower.
Got it. And the third question?
How will you support your work? This is about setting yourself up for success.
Support like.coffee. Yeah, could be coffee. Or having the right kind of snacks nearby so hunger doesn't derail you. Maybe incorporating a short walk beforehand, like Nietzsche believed. It is only ideas gained from walking that have any worth.
Okay.
It also means having your materials ready, research pulled up, whatever you need so there's no friction once you start. Systematize the support so you don't have to think about it.
So location, duration, rules, support.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
And you'll likely need to experiment a bit, tweak it until it feels right for you. But putting in that effort to build the ritual, it pays off massively in terms of consistent, deep work.
Okay, this next tactic sounds dramatic. Make grand gestures. You mentioned J.K. Rowling earlier.
Yeah, the story is she was really struggling to finish the last Harry Potter book, The Deathly Hallows, at home. Too many distractions, the dog, the kids.
In there.
Right. So what does she do? She checked into a suite at the Balmoral, this super fancy 5-star hotel in Edinburgh, costing like over $1,000 a day.
Wow.
And she just kept going back day after day until the book was done. That's a grand gesture.
So the idea is a radical change in environment.
Exactly. Often involving significant effort or money, dedicated entirely to a specific deep work task. The psychological insight here is powerful. This huge commitment ramps up the perceived importance of the task. It makes it harder to procrastinate and injects serious motivation. It's not just about getting away from distractions, it's about the psychology of investing heavily in the goal.
Okay, I get it. Like Bill Gates and his think weeks in a cabin somewhere.
Perfect example, just him and a stack of books and papers thinking about Microsoft's future. That's apparently where he grasped the huge importance of the internet. Or writers like Dan Pink or Michael Pollan building separate writing cabins in their backyards.
But what if you don't have a spare cabin or, $1,000 a day for a hotel suite?
That's fair. Most of us don't. But the principle still applies. Newport mentions Peter Shankman, a consultant who booked a $4,000 round-trip business class flight to Tokyo.
Just to write.
Just to write his book manuscript on the plane. Because for him, 30,000 feet, totally disconnected, was his ultimate focus zone. He got it done in 30 hours. The point isn't always about luxury. It's about creating a significant physical and psychological break from your normal routine to signal to your brain. This is important. Focus now.
So maybe big could just be booking a specific room at the library for a whole day, or paying for a co-working space just for that project.
Exactly. It's the gesture of commitment. As Newport says, sometimes to go deep, you must first go big.
Okay, this next one feels like it goes against everything we've just said. Don't work alone. Hold on, aren't we trying to eliminate distractions? Open plan offices, Facebook, Bloomberg, wherever they're designed for interaction, right? For serendipitous creativity. That sounds like the opposite of deep work.
It does seem like a contradiction, doesn't it? But let's unpack that serendipitous creativity idea. Where did it come from?
Good question.
Well, think about MIT's legendary Building 20. It was supposed to be temporary, built during WWRI. Different departments got jumbled together in this kind of messy, reconfigurable space. And amazing things came out of it. Chomsky's linguistics, radar breakthroughs, atomic clocks.
Because people bumped into each other.
Pretty much. Or Bell Labs and Murray Hill. It was intentionally designed with long hallways and connected buildings to force people from different disciplines to interact. And boom, the transistor, solar cells, lasers.
Okay, so collaboration can spark innovation. But how does that fit with needing quiet focus?
Here's the nuance. When MIT replaced Building 20 with the Stata Center, designed by Frank Gehry, yes, it had lots of common areas, open stairwells, places designed to encourage those chance encounters, but the faculty insisted on having private, soundproofed offices, too.
So both hand, not either.
Yeah, exactly. Newport calls it a hub-and-spoke architecture of innovation. You need the hubs, the common areas for serendipity and interaction, but you also need the spokes. The private spaces for focused, deep thinking. Building 20 and Bell Labs, they had private offices, too, alongside the collaborative spaces.
That makes more sense. It's not just open plan.
Right. And there's also something called the whiteboard effect. Sometimes working deeply alongside someone else, hashing out a problem together on a whiteboard, can actually push you both deeper than you'd get alone. Think Brattain and Bardeen working side by side on the transistor.
Okay, so if we're trying to apply this, what are the guidelines?
Two main things. First, deliberately separate your hubs and spokes. Don't try to do deep, focused work in the middle of the noisy hub. Optimize your environment for the task at hand.
Makes sense.
Second, even when you're in your spoke, your quiet space, recognize that sometimes leveraging that whiteboard effect, working collaboratively on a deep task, can yield better results. Choose the right mode for the right problem.
But there's a danger here, isn't there, of overvaluing the interaction part?
Absolutely. Newport cautions against lionizing that quest for interaction, for positive randomness, so much that it completely crowds out the essential need for unbroken concentration to actually make something useful out of all those swirling ideas. You need both interaction and isolation.
Right. Finding that balance is key. Okay, so moving from physical space and collaboration, deep work also needs a kind of strategic discipline, like running a business. That's the next tactic. Execute. Like a business, using something called 4DX.
Yeah, the 4 disciplines of execution. It's based on this idea, highlighted by a story about Clayton Christensen and Andy Grove from Intel. Grove understood the strategy Christensen was presenting, but his critical question was, okay, but how do I actually do this?
The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it.
Exactly. That's the gap 4DX tries to bridge. It's a framework from the business world, but Newport argues it adapts remarkably well to building personal deep work habits. The core idea is, if you apply rigorous execution principles to your own deep work, you turn vague intentions into real measurable results.
Okay, let's break down the 4 disciplines. Discipline #1, focus on the wildly important.
This is about ruthless prioritization. The principle is simple. The more you try to do, the less you actually accomplish. You have to identify a very small number of wildly important goals, WIGs they call them, that really matter and generate genuine enthusiasm.
So not just any goal, but one that feels big, exciting, maybe even a little scary.
Yeah, David Brooks has a great quote, "Say yes to the subject that arouses a terrifying longing." The insight is, stop trying to do a little bit of everything. Pick the 1 or 2 deep work goals that truly ignite you and have the biggest impact, and focus your energy there. Newport's example was aiming to publish 5 high-quality academic papers in a year, ambitious, tied to tenure, genuinely important to him.
Okay, got the wig. What's discipline #2?
Act on the LAID measures. This is crucial. It distinguishes between lag measures and lead measures.
Lag and LEDs, explain.
Okay, a lag measure tells you if you've achieved the goal like profit or customer satisfaction scores or maybe papers published. The problem is they come after the fact. You can't really influence them directly day to day.
Right, they lag behind the action.
Exactly. A lead measure, on the other hand, tracks the critical activities that drive goal achievement, things you can directly influence now. Like, for a bakery, maybe the number of free samples they give out that's controllable and likely leads to more sales, the lag measure.
So for deep work, what's the lead measure?
Time. Specifically, time spent in a state of deep work dedicated toward your wildly important goal. Newport shifted from tracking papers published, lag, to tracking hours spent in deep work, lead. That immediately changes your focus to what you need to do today and this week, the insight. Track the inputs you control. Hours focus, not just the outputs, results achieved later, because that directly influences your daily behavior.
Makes total sense. Discipline, #3.
Keep a compelling scoreboard. Simple idea. People play differently when they're keeping score. Having a visible way to track your progress on that lead measure keeps you engaged and motivated.
Like physically visible.
Ideally, yeah. For an individual, Newport suggests something like a piece of cardstock tacked to your wall near your workspace. You make tally marks for every hour of deep work completed each week towards your WIG.
So you see the progress building up.
Right. And he'd even circle groups of tally marks when they corresponded to hitting a milestone on a paper, visually connecting the hours invested lead to the results achieved. Lag, the insight, making your progress tangible and visible, creates a powerful feedback loop that fuels motivation and helps calibrate your effort.
Okay, WIG, lead measures, scoreboard. What's the final discipline? #4.
Create a cadence of accountability. This means having a regular rhythm, usually weekly, where you check in on your progress, even if it's just you reviewing your own scoreboard.
A weekly review.
Yeah. You look at the scoreboard. Did I hit my deep work hour goal this week? Why or why not? What obstacles came up? What's the plan for next week to hit the goal? You review past commitments and make new ones for the coming week.
So it forces you to confront the data and plan ahead.
Exactly. Newport credits this regular accountability just looking at his tally marks each week, planning the next with significantly boosting his deep work hours. And the result? He aimed for 5 papers that year. He got 9 accepted. More than double his previous output.
Wow.
And he stresses it wasn't about some superhuman intensity. It was the regularity, the consistency driven by the 4DX system, the insight. Consistent schedule, self-review, and planning is what transforms good intentions into reliable habits and dramatically boosts your deep work output.
Okay, that 4DX framework sounds powerful. Now for our final tactic. This one sounds almost like a joke after all that talk about discipline.
Yeah.
Be lazy. Huh? Yeah, it does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? Newport starts with Tim Kreider, an essayist who apparently fled to an undisclosed location with no TV or internet. Kreider calls himself the laziest, ambitious person I know.
Lazy but ambitious. How does that work?
Kreider's surprising insight was this. Idleness is not just a vacation. It is as indispensable to the brain as vitamin D is to the body. It is paradoxically necessary to getting any work done.
Okay, intriguing. So the tactic isn't actually about being lazy in the sense of avoiding work.
Not at all. It's about strategically injecting regular, substantial periods of freedom from professional concerns into your day and week. Specifically, implementing a strict end-of-work-day shutdown, a point after which you consider work closed until the next morning. No checking email after dinner, no mentally replaying work problems, just being truly done.
So be lazy really means be done when you're done.
Precisely. And the profound insight is true downtime, real mental rest, isn't a luxury or a sign of weakness. It's actually a critical component for sustained high-level cognitive performance and creativity. Okay, why is that downtime so important? Newport gives reasons, right?
Yeah, 3 key reasons grounded in science. First, downtime aids insights. This relates to something called unconscious thought theory, or UTT.
Unconscious thought, like my brain works things out while I'm watching TV?
Sort of. Studies, like one from 2006 by Dijksterhuis, found that for complex decisions, ones with lots of fuzzy variables, people who were distracted for a bit after receiving the information actually made better choices than those who tried to consciously deliberate the whole time.
It's weird. Why?
UTT suggests our unconscious mind might actually have more neuronal bandwidth to juggle complex, ill-defined problems, whereas our conscious mind is better at following strict rules. So giving your conscious brain a break lets your unconscious chew on those big, tricky professional challenges. It diversifies your brain's problem-solving approach.
Interesting. Okay, reason number 2.
Downtime helps recharge energy. This is based on attention restoration theory, or RT.
Restoring attention.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, our ability to direct our attention, that focused concentration we need for deep work, is a finite resource. It gets depleted. RT suggests that exposure to inherently fascinating stimuli, particularly in nature, helps replenish it because these things capture our attention effortlessly without requiring directed focus.
So like a walk in the woods.
Exactly. A 2008 study found people performed about 20% better on a concentration task after walking on a wooded path compared to walking down a busy city street, even in winter. But it doesn't have to be nature. Any relaxing activity, casual chat, listening to music, playing with your kids, going for a run that provides that effortless fascination and frees you from directed attention can help restore your focus reserves.
And interrupting your evening with work emails would prevent that restoration.
Completely. Even a quick check can pull you back into directed attention mode, preventing that deeper relaxation and recharge. Newport argues only the confidence that comes from a complete shutdown allows your brain to fully replenish its attention resources for the next day.
Okay, insights and energy recharge. What's the third reason to be lazy?
Evening work is usually not important. Anyway, this ties back to research on deliberate practice, like Anders Ericsson's work.
The 10,000 hours guy?
Well, yes, but more specifically, his findings on the limits of intense cognitive effort. He found that even elite experts, like top violinists, can typically only manage about 4 hours of highly concentrated practice per day. Novices. Maybe only 1 hour?
So by the evening.
By the evening, you've likely already hit your maximum capacity for real, high-quality, deep work for the day. Any work you try to cram in then is probably going to be low-value, shallow stuff, answering emails, tidying files, and you'll be doing it slowly and inefficiently because your brain is tired. You're usually not missing out on much important work by just shutting down and doing it fresh tomorrow.
Okay, that's compelling. So the strategy is a hard stop. But how do you actually shut down, especially if you have unfinished tasks nagging at you?
This is critical. You need a strict shutdown ritual. Newport calls it an algorithm, a repeatable series of steps you perform at the end of every workday. The goal is to ensure every incomplete task, goal, or project has been reviewed and that you have a trusted plan for its completion or capture.
So you're not just walking away, you're closing the loops.
Exactly. His personal ritual involves a final email check, transferring any new tasks onto his master lists, quickly skimming those lists in his calendar to ensure nothing urgent is missed, making a very rough plan for the next day, and then, crucially, actually saying out loud or to himself a phrase like, "shutdown complete."
Saying it out loud, does that help?
It acts as a clear mental divider, but the real power comes from addressing the Zeigarnik effect.
Zeigarnik, what's that?
It's a psychological finding that incomplete tasks tend to dominate our attention. They just keep popping back into our heads. But other research showed that simply making a plan to deal with an incomplete task is enough to satisfy that effect and free up your cognitive resources.
So the ritual, by forcing you to review and plan for everything outstanding.
It essentially tells your brain, okay, this is captured. You don't need to keep reminding me. It allows your mind to fully disengage because it trusts the system, the insight. A disciplined shutdown ritual isn't just about stopping work. It's about training your brain to let go, improving your evening relaxation, and boosting your focus for the next day.
It probably takes a bit of time, that ritual.
Maybe 10-15 minutes, Newport says. And it might take a week or two for the habit to really stick and for your brain to trust it. But the payoff, being truly present in your evenings and more focused the next day, is huge. His final word on it is perfect. When you work, work hard. When you're done, be done.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this all up. Achieving your full potential, especially in this crazy, distracted world, it isn't really about just gritting your teeth and working harder or longer hours. It's about working deeper.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, structuring your time, your environment, even leveraging psychological principles like we've discussed.
We've covered these different philosophies for how deep work can fit into different lives. The intense monastic, the split bimodal, the consistent rhythmic, the agile journalistic.
And then all those practical tactics to actually support the deep work, regardless of your philosophy. Things like building rituals, making those grand gestures, collaborating strategically, executing like a business with 40x, and even paradoxically, knowing when to be lazy and shut down properly.
Yeah, and if we really connect this to the bigger picture, it feels like it's all about reclaiming some control, doesn't it? Control over our most valuable resource, really, our focused attention.
Absolutely. And these aren't just, interesting ideas from a book. They're really actionable strategies that you, listening right now, can start thinking about and applying.
So maybe a final thought for you to mull over. Considering that limited willpower we all grapple with and the constant pull of the shallow, what's maybe one specific distraction you're willing to consciously schedule out of your most productive time this coming week? Or, looking at it the other way, what's one small ritual or maybe even a slightly grander gesture that you could implement to carve out a dedicated pocket of deep focus and start moving towards those wildly important goals? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Rule #1 of Cal Newport's deep work. We really hope you can take these insights and apply them to find more depth in your own work and life.